Welcome to this week's edition of the Dakota Angler 2-Minute Fishing Report. Well, the cooler weather this past week and then also the cooler weather this week, as well as it being more stable, has definitely helped with the bite around the area. A lot of people have been going out, but with the start of school, that has started to impact the number of people that are hitting the lakes during the week. But people that are going out are having some success, and with the expected cooler and more stable weather, the remainder of this week into next, it looks like the perch bite is going to only get better, and I've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks. But honestly, it does look like things are starting to take shape, especially with the clear water around the area. It seems like a lot of lakes are clearing up. A lot of the weed growth is starting to die off a little bit, and that will definitely help the bite. As far as the walleye bite is concerned around the area this past week, lakes up in the northeastern part of the state that produce walleyes include Lynn, Midland, also Bitter, Wabae, Dry Lake by Clark, Goose, Grass, Pius, Indian Springs, Stink, also a few being caught at Rush as well as Opitz. Down the southeastern part of the state, the lakes that produce walleyes included Dry Lake by Willow Lake, Thompson, a few being caught at Ponset, also Whitewood, Sinai, Spirit, 81 Ponds, Island, Vermilion, and then also Twin. And again, as I've always reminded you, Twin is the trophy lake. You can only keep a walleye if it's 28 inches or larger. Now, what are guys doing to catch the walleyes? Again, typical pattern that you would expect this time of year. Seems like a few more people now are switching over to more live bait, not only crawlers but also minnows, and putting them on jigs, and it has had some success, especially if you're marking the fish on your depth finders on your electronics. Otherwise, people are out looking for them. And the best ways to do that is to cover as much water as you possibly can, and that by pulling crankbaits or also bottom bouncing with spinners or slow depth and with crawlers, and that's been doing quite well. A lot of people are also snap jigging. A lot of people are using the Acme Hyper Rattles and coming away with some really nice fish. And again, as I said the past week, that presentation, that technique is only going to be becoming more popular and successful as the cooler water temperatures move in. And then as far as the perch bite around the area is concerned, again, sporadic. Some guys are having some success, but again, it depends on the day. They're not all completely schooled up. Big Stone is definitely the lake there. A lot of people are catching perch up there, but you have to sort quite a bit to come home with your quality fish. A lot of, let's say, 6 to 8, 9-inch perch being caught up there. But again, once in a while you get a few nicer perch up there. Other lakes include Pius, Stink, Wabae, Dry Lake by Willow Lake, Ponset, Thompson, also Oakwood, a few being caught there, and emphasize few. Also Island and Madison, and then also Twin. Now remember, on Twin, it's not a trophy lake for perch. You can keep whatever you catch with the perch or the bluegill. As far as what people are doing to catch the perch, a lot of people are using slip bobbers, and we'll talk about that in Todd's Tackle Tips. Other people are using the clam pinhead minnows, the Chartreuse Wonderbread jointed one works really well, and you can only get that here at the store at Dakota Angler. Other people are using the Haleys, Pilkies, or also Castmasters with drop chains have been working really well. As far as bait is concerned, a few plastics being used, but mainly waxworms, small minnows, as well as maggots. And we have plenty of that on hand here at the store. In this week's edition of Todd's Tackle Tips, we're going to talk about perch fishing and then the way that a lot of people have continued to do it for a number of years, and that's using a slip bobber. But first off, we've talked about in previous weeks about having a sensitive rod. And there's nothing more important to have a sensitive rod when you're out there looking for perch or some type of panfish, especially when you're jigging for it, or if you're not using a bobber. If you're using a slip bobber, you don't necessarily need to have that sensitive rod, because that bobber is going to tell you whether or not you have a bite or not. And that's why people love to have a slip bobber. Plus, you can control it a little bit better at the same time. People use that slip bobber can determine whether or not you're successful or not. And one of the ways that a lot of people are unsuccessful is that they don't really know how to rig up the slip bobber properly. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Really, all you need is obviously some slip bobbers. We have a number of different types of slip bobbers. These are from Tailfin here, very popular. And then you need some bobber stops. And the bobber stops come with stop knots as well as beads. And so what you want to do is you want to take one of these stop knots on the tube, out of the package, and you feed the line, your fishing line, through that, and you stop at the depth that you want that bobber to be. And to give you the rough idea, your wingspan of your arms is roughly your height. So usually that's what I'll start with, depending on how deep that water is. But if I want to be 6 feet deep, I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm going to be a little bit shorter than that. I don't want to be right on the bottom. With the perch, I want to be up a little bit above the bottom to start with, to say the least. So once I get that line through the tube, I get it to the depth that I want it. I slide the line off the tube here onto the line. Let the tube fall to the ground, and then take the two ends of the string and tighten it together, and then clip off the excess. Then I'll take the bead, feed that up the line to the bobber stop, and then I'll slide the bobber up there. And so it goes bobber stop, bead, bobber, and then your hook or your jig underneath that. And then you can adjust that bobber stop, shallower or deeper, however way you want to. Once you figure out the pattern, that's where you're going to want to adjust all the other bobber stops to that exact same depth. So a bobber stop with the bead and a bobber are great ways to fish, and a great way to take your family out there and let the kids watch that bobber go down, because honestly, there's nothing better than watching a bobber go down. If you have more questions about setting up your bobber and you're using a slip bobber and a bobber stop by here at the store or give us a call at 605-336-9132. And now it's time to take a look at a few photos that you sent in to me this past week. And remember, folks, we love to see your photos. We love to share them with others. So please send them to us. Send them to todd@dakotaangler.com or post it to our Facebook wall. And before we end this week's report, again, I want to remind you, mark your calendars for the 14th Annual Dakota Angler Ice Institute, November 11th through the 13th. More details will be unfolding shortly, but it will be the biggest and best show of these years. So again, you don't want to miss it. So again, November 11th through the 13th. If you want to stay up to date with all the latest happenings here at the store or with the Ice Institute, please follow us on social media. We have a number of different ways you can do that. You can also follow us on our website at dakotaangler.com, but also Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, also Snapchat are all great ways to stay up with the latest happenings here at the store. Well, folks, that's this week's version of the 2-Minute Fishing Report. For Dakota Angler, I'm the owner, Todd Heitkamp, and as we say around here, fish on! We'll see you next week, and again, thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Stay healthy, and folks, stay safe.